Former CEO Dan Matjila reckons he left the PIC in pretty good shape. That's despite him being implicated in dodgy dealings by several people. Matjila is continuing with his testimony at the PIC inquiry. Heidi Jakos is monitoring the situation for us. She joins us now live. So Dan Matjila now getting into his role in investments and how he left the PIC. He says in pretty good shape. That's contrary to what other people have said.
A complete contradiction to what we've been hearing from over 70 witnesses at the Commission of Inquiry, Shahan. But basically today he started to get to the crux of his testimony and his involvement in all these investments that the PIC got involved in. But basically he's washing his hands clean. He's saying he understands there are certain glitches within the PIC. There are certain issues that need to be addressed when it comes to the risk process, the due diligence process, and all the processes involved in when it comes to investing into various companies. But he says that while it's not 100% in good standing, or the PIC is not operating 100%, one should focus on what is going on right. And even though there are some issues, the good should not be dismissed. He did, however, say to the Commission that perhaps the recommendations that come out of this Commission of Inquiry should speak to how those issues and glitches and loopholes can be addressed and can be fixed. Jill Marcus questioning him on this, though, and saying, you say you left the PIC in good standing, yet everybody who's testified here, top executives, staff members within the PIC, have said that you were a ruler within the PIC and that you didn't follow proper processes and you completely dismissed due diligence when it came to investments. But him saying that, he admits there are problems, but he's not a man of everything. I mean, those were his words. He says, there's an impression that I'm a man of everything, but there are other executives that need to account and need to answer to this. Yesterday we heard him blaming political interference for certain decisions or mounting pressure, but today he's saying, he's not the man of everything and he can't answer to this. So a different side that we're hearing, of course, his side that he's been given an opportunity to tell at this commission.
The commission is probing why the PIC paid such high advisory fees on a number of deals. What is Dan Matjila's reasoning for that?
So his reasoning for this is standard practice. He says that it's standard practice to pay advisory fees, yet the Commission of Inquiry is saying it might be standard practice to pay advisory fees, but it's not standard practice to pay 100 million rand on a 1.8 billion rand investment or a transaction. And this is something that we've heard a number of times throughout this Commission of Inquiry. It's too detailed to go into right now, but if one remembers the Tosaka deal, it was 100 million rand advisory fee that was paid. The SNS refinery, where former Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene's son is implicated, of 18 million rand advisory fees. The Steinhoff transaction of over 100 million rand advisory fee. So, the Commission trying to understand how the PIC comes to the final advisory fee figure, because Jill Marcus questioning and saying, the advisory fee should be based on the value of the transaction, but what we're seeing here is that the advisory fee far exceeds the value of the transaction fee, and the calculation does not balance. And then he eventually says and admits, and he says perhaps that needs to be relooked at. So I think when he's pushed a little and probed a little on certain decisions that were taken within the PIC, he then eventually admits to it and saying that needs to be relooked at, and perhaps the Commission can make a recommendation thereof. And
he also had something to say on Eskom.
Exactly. So what he's basically saying is that the PIC has always supported SOEs, and basically saying that despite Eskom having a number of problems, I mean, we all know how Eskom's really been struggling over the last couple of years, but him basically saying that, we've tried by all means to assist Eskom as far as possible. We've always bought bonds where necessary. And he also points out something interesting. He says they put forward a new policy that could assist Eskom, but he says that this was not, really considered under Malusi Kigaba, who was the finance minister at the time. But let's listen to what Dan Matjila actually had to say about Eskom.
I'm not sure what the PIC is doing at the moment. I'm outside.
No, are we talking
at
the time when you left?
Yes, at the time. We've supported most of the state-owned entities, and once we there were problems starting of the balance sheets and so on. We then put together a much more comprehensive policy on how we're going to finance state-owned entities going forward, and the nature of interventions that we will require to entice the PIC to put more money into state-owned entities, fixed income instruments. And I don't think, if I remember well, we have not increased our exposure or bought more bonds of ESCOM, except the 5 billion bridging facility that we had to give them to avoid any potential breach.
All right.